We've been talking about councils and the funding problems that they are facing being a big, big, monumental problem. And the cold hard fact is that one of the big things that was keeping them alive was the EU development grants, the money that they got from the EU. That tap, that hose, that funding nozzle, that was turned off just last year. And you have seen a rapid acceleration where this was barely talked about in any news media or press or anything like that, that there was this severe, council funding problem shortage, to now the story has just picked up pace after pace after pace after pace, and it is now becoming a monthly occurrence of a new council saying, we're having budget problems. We're going to have to, severely balance our budget. But now comes a new problem. Because of not only the cost of living crisis, but obviously the big cost in energy, guess what councils are now looking at doing? They are going to turn off streetlights because they cannot afford to keep street lights running. And this is going to cause a whole myriad of problems if you start to see these street lights just get turned off. So let's take a look into this, but we shouldn't be surprised. This is a continuing issue. This is a continuing problem for local councils. And yet, it's just a matter of funding. And of course, inflation being the biggest key problem. This is actually the big key driver. It is the inflationary costs that are driving them even more to the wall. This is one of the reasons why you are seeing a lot of councils going bust a lot quicker because of that. So before we do get more into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, you can click on the like and share button. There's the YouTube thank you button as well, and the Pony Club too, you can check out as well. So let's go on into this. This is coming from The Guardian. With concern as more councils in England and Wales plan to turn off street lights. The county of Norfolk contains some of the best stargazing spots in the UK and was one of the few places where it was possible to see the spectacular aurora borealis this winter, thanks to its very much darkened skies and insulated by light pollution. But the council's attempts to plunge Norfolk roads now into further darkness are being contested by groups worried about personal safety, particularly for women out alone. A majority of councils across England and Wales have introduced measures to either dim or cut streetlights altogether over the past 15 years. Some have saved millions of pounds a year, and now cash-strapped local authorities have increased cuts in an effort to try and plug the gaping holes in their budgets, with Croydon, Cornwall, and Havering and Hampshire just the latest now to declare plans to switch off lights. Norfolk Council said that the cost of its running its 54,000 streetlights a year had more than doubled in the last couple of years to about 4 million a year. It had said it made savings of at least 15 million a year since 2008 by introducing more energy-efficient LED lighting, dimming some lights and then switching off nearly 20,000 others between midnight and 5 a.m. It now intends to extend this to more streetlights and have longer hours of darkness after consultations with police and local people. In November, however, more than 200 students at the University of East Anglia signed a petition to stop further cuts after 94% of students surveyed said that they would now feel a lot safer if streetlights were left on later. This message has now been echoed by campaign groups nationally worried about the effects of these darker neighborhoods might have on public safety. The organization of Our Streets Now and the anti-stalking charity, the the Susie Lampker, I can't even say it, the Susan Trust, this week raised concerns about councils' moves to cut more streetlights and describing women's safety as now an afterthought. So obviously a big worry about this, but councils are having to do this because of how the inflationary costs and the problems in and around some of this. So it is becoming an increasingly more problem. It wouldn't surprise me if you saw more, as we said there, more councils looking at doing stuff like this. He said that there is now conflicting research about the effects of darker streets on crime. A study for Oxfordshire and Berkshire back in 2022, led by the University of College London, found that car break-ins were halved when streetlights were cut during the middle of the night. An in-depth review of the college policing covered over 13 studies. However, it found that violent and property crime were reduced by an average of 21%, where street lighting is improved. There is obviously an absence of research specifically on women's safety when lights were dimmed or turned off, but it is clear that there is still a tangible effect. And bear in mind, we learnt this back in the Victorian age. Like, we learnt this back in the Victorian age. If you know anything about, Jack the Ripper, in the response to the problems of course, of the killings that occurred because of that, street lighting was very quickly, rapidly rolled out across the capital. And I wouldn't surprise me if you could actually find studies that showed crime at night dropped because of that street lighting. Would not surprise me if that research is out there showing that exists. But anyway, it continues. Perceptions do really matter, said Dr. Anne Barker, an associate professor at the Criminal Justice and Criminology at Leeds University, who led the research last year into improving the design of parks that involved interviewing more than 100 women and girls. When people feel unsafe, the data shows that they change their behavior, and that often results in women avoiding spaces that they may often feel unsafe, or in times they feel are unsafe, or just not using them on their own. She also said that the streetlights were not a panacea and were only part of one solution to make the public spaces feel more accessible. She said lighting is one intervention, but it's not the only intervention that is needed to make a difference to women's safety in public areas. Dr. Eleanor Bordeaux, the architect and lighting designer who co-founded Light Follows Behavior, which works on outdoor spaces, said that she was also a class component that needs to be recognized. With some more well-heeled areas can afford darkness, but it was also not to be sensible to apply the same rule to more dangerous places, she said, particularly in poor areas. Her work on social housing estates advises more lighting rather than less. Sometimes you need more points of light to get the right uniformity instead of flooding lighting everywhere like a prison yard, she said. Alongside the financial benefits, however, there may also be other upsides to reducing street lighting. Dr. Richard Fox, the head of the Scientific Science Butterfly Convention, said that research on moths found that streetlights had really significant impact, reducing moth and caterpillar populations by more than half in some places. Moths are a vital in the food chain and a key component of diet for many mammals, such as bats and hedgehogs, amphibians and birds. There are a whole bunch of Philomia garden birds, like which feed on basically only on moth caterpillars, he said. So if you want to have a reduction of at least 50% of moth caterpillar population, this is what we found under the LED streetlights, then there's more than half of the food for your birds gone. He says that specific research of the effect on wildlife and dimming lights and switching them off for periods of the night had not been carried out, but it did seem that turning off streetlights or abandoning or outdoor lightings at nighttime when they really weren't needed by humans would be a good idea. Again, obviously, there's going to be environmental impacts, as it was said there. But ultimately, I think this comes down to a question of safety. I think that's the big problem. And I think now you've got research that shows, as was mentioned there, you have street lighting reduces crime. This isn't new. This isn't new. We found this out back in the Victorian era, where they started to roll out gas street lighting through the city of London, and other cities followed suit. So this is, I think, really a question of safety, um, and I think it would be a shame to see this go. And remember, the whole reason why this is happening, is because councils are having to make budget cuts. Why are they having to make budget cuts? Because their income, the money they've got, has been slashed. They've been told to do more with less, and ever dwindling resources. Not only that, you've had inflation, which is putting even more pressure on their budgets than before. So things would cost more than they used to. It's a big problem for councils. And yet now you're seeing councils look to do things like this, which, if you do this, is gonna have a big knock-on effect for crime in those towns and cities. So but they're in this situation because of Tory austerity. This is what happens when you've had this long amount of Tory austerity for this long. So again, serious problem, does need sorting out. But as always, let me know what you think down below. Do you live in one of these areas that started doing this? Have you noticed the change? Do you feel more safe, less safe at night, depending on the lighting in your street, in your area? Let me know down below. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, we'll see you all next time.